Warning: this video features heavy discussion about the Holocaust. If this is a sensitive subject for you, then either don't watch or proceed with caution. So naturally, being a victim to the education system, I had to learn about the Holocaust and naturally read stories and books written by Holocaust survivors. However, among all the stories I learned about in those days, the one that stuck out to me the most was the story of Anne Frank. In my 8th grade English class, when it came time to study the Diary of Anne Frank, we watched the 2009 BBC miniseries. And easy to say at the end of episode 5, when all the Annex survivors were arrested and it showed their death dates, the hurt just grew more and more. And then when it showed Anne's, yeah, I kinda had to fight back my tears, with little success. And from then on, Anne Frank's story became one of my favorite topics when it came to studying the Holocaust. Watching nearly every film portraying the events of her life, watching documentaries and interviews from people who knew Anne, etc., etc. So, when I first heard of this film, I will not lie when I say, when I first heard of the concept, I immediately declared it to be the dumbest thing ever and decided to boycott it. You could see how well that turned out. So, what do I think of this movie? Well, let's find out. So, the movie begins at the Anne Frank house, where the glass casing over Anne's diary breaks. So this is Kitty, who, for those who don't know, is the imaginary friend to whom Anne wrote in her diary. And she's alive now because I have no idea.
Otto? Edith? Margot? Anne? Where is everybody?
And then we flash back to when Anne got the diary.
Slowly.
Oh, Mont Blanc.
That's beautiful.
I miss skiing.
We all miss skiing.
Anne, stop it.
Wow.
So back in the present, Kitty watches people look through the Anne Frank house, and in another flashback, we see Anne tell Kitty about the many boys who were simping for her in her school days. And then she goes on to explain how much the Nazis suck.
We were banned from concert halls, shops, sporting events, parks, hospitals, universities.
So then we see Otto and Edith receive the very infamous call-up notice that had arrived from Margot, and the Franks then proceed to go into hiding. Meanwhile, in the present, Kitty leaves the Anne Frank house with the diary and actually becomes visible. And we see that she thinks Anne is still alive.
Anne. Does she have a last name?
Yes, Anne Frank.
However, when the police find out Kitty has Anne's diary, she runs off and she runs into this guy named Peter, and she decides to ice skate. However,
Peter, bring me the diary. I'm in there.
well, crap. After making it back to the Anne Frank house, Kitty once again becomes invisible to the world. And it's time for another flashback.
Peter, come down, please.
Why do you bother? He's probably dying up there.
Anne, please. I can't. I'm dying.
Meanwhile, in the present, Peter is interrogated by the police, but then, another flashback! Look, I love the story of Anne Frank, watch the adaptations, the documentaries, all that. But this movie is seriously starting to turn into the 1990s It at the rate these flashbacks keep popping up. But snarkiness aside, these flashbacks actually do a good job of representing the quote-unquote relationship Anne had with Kitty, and even in a few instances, her imagination. So it's not like the flashbacks don't serve a purpose. And so back in the present, Peter breaks the window leading to Anne Frank's room for no good reason and goes to see Kitty.
As long as you're here in the house with the diary, you're invisible. When you leave the house with the diary, you come to life. You're real, except it doesn't last if you get too far from the diary.
And then we get a chase scene which results in Kitty seeing Anne's statue. So a little bit later on, Kitty does some more research regarding the people in the annex, where she makes the tragic discovery.
He found the diary.
The girls died? What girls?
When he heard that Anne and Margot had died at Bergen-Belsen. What's wrong, my little girl?
Otto was the only one to survive the war.
And this is about where I started to change my mind about this movie. Because when I first watched this, I was honestly bored out of my mind. And then seeing this, I realized there was still some potential left in it. And then Kitty goes to see a stage production about Anne's life. And after pointing out an inaccuracy, Kitty's back on the run. Christ, this girl gets more exercise than most people I know. And after evading the police, Kitty stumbles upon a group of war refugees. And then...
Why didn't you tell me that Anne died? Not only Anne, but everybody in the house except her father?
I tried, but you wouldn't listen.
And so Kitty and Peter travel to Bergen-Belsen, where Kitty finally sees Anne and Margot's grave. And so Peter and Kitty kiss. This film was pretty good up until that point. And after that, Kitty makes a stand defending the refugees by threatening to destroy Anne's diary. Christ, this girl's got some balls. And so the refugees are, of course, allowed to stay, and the diary is returned. And then...
Kitty! Kitty! Kitty!
Yeah, I gotta be honest, this movie took a few watches before I could form my opinion on it, and it's not in my top 10 favorites or anything, but I can kinda recommend it. The voice acting kinda varies with some of the characters. The story itself is also kinda mixed for me. As much as I love the overarching plot of Kitty learning about Anne's death and legacy, I don't think that alone can carry a whole movie, which I guess kind of explains all the flashbacks. I will admit, Kitty taking a stand for the refugees is actually pretty fitting for her character, though I don't see why the romance with Peter had to be included. I mean, it's a fine romance, but I don't know. It kind of feels like a weird inclusion. However, I will say the animation is easily one of the best parts of this film. So, what do I think of the movie overall? It's decent. I feel if the overarching plot had more of a prominent focus and actually paced better, it could have been better. I really don't know what more to say. I won't knock this film too much because it was actually written by the child of 2 Holocaust survivors, so I can't say the intention wasn't right, if that makes sense. But with that said, I'm gonna wrap it up here. Hayden is out. Peace. What kind of laugh was that?